Sometimes I have a little bit of cognitive delay. If that happens, I'm actually going to just allow myself to take a break and then come back. I'll just hit pause, so you probably hear a little, just a minute break. You might. And I apologize if that happens. Recently, I've been talking a lot about Facebook. I think they kind of switched their name over to
Meta.
Meta. But, and I know it might seem kind of annoying, but it is so mandatory that I continue to talk about it because teachers in academia don't know about it, professors, researchers don't know about it, people in official offices don't know about it. And today I had another researcher tell me some things that I actually didn't like. I respect this researcher. I'm not going to use a name. I'm pretty much not the type to use names. It's not a good idea. But I'm having trouble with people just reading. So just, really read when I send something. I know I can write a lot, but I'm usually pretty good at writing. And this person's usually pretty good at responding, but he hasn't been lately. Maybe effects from the virus, possibly. Although he's in better shape than I am. But here's what he said. I'm literally telling, this is a research scientist that I've contacted the Office for Human Research, IRB, at my local university just to find out, it appears there's no oversight, there's bad discrimination, so I want to report it. Felt it was worth asking him, but I knew he might not know this, okay, because it's outside of the context or scope of his group. But his response, true, I'm not aware of any oversight on informal Facebook research. I never said this was informal. I wouldn't have called the IRB and the Office for Human Research on informal Facebook research.
That's the opposite.
I don't even know what that is. Furthermore, Facebook cannot conduct research. Well, they sort of can, but they're not supposed to conduct research on you without your knowledge. And I think we're going to be seeing some stuff that's going to come to, and he called it Face Brood, and really, I think that's a good name for it, or Face Brood, maybe something. I don't know. Okay, that's just kind of another, situation. But I told him what it was. It's real research, actual research. Oh, I don't know about that, and it's registered. It's a study. It's a formal study. It has forms and paperwork that were hidden. It's definitely not informal. This is a research study. And he said to me, something that obviously shows he's not listening. If it's an IRB approved study, then you should be able to comment to the institutional review board that approved the research. Each university of research institution has an IRB committee. So he obviously didn't read because I told him that the IRB said no in my university. And if there is an IRB, which I found out there is for Facebook, what I found is a 5-person employee based IRB. They're employees of Facebook doing their own oversight on their studies. So this is like the tobacco companies, by the way, doing research on cigarettes and then lying about it for a long time. And now we're dealing with the fallout of that, really big fallout. I don't think I need to repeat those stats for you. I'm not going to. It's depressing. So I told him, and this is again with the indefinite dating and this kind of bad communication. This person I don't date. But this is bad communication. Feels like I'm in a relationship. I contacted the IRB, but some researchers aren't working for the academia. They aren't funded. This might have FDA oversight and blah, 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 blah. Writing and open. All formal research. His response. All formal human subject research needs IRB approval or it cannot be published. Well, that might be true. But I have two things that I want to say to that. One is, what if Facebook doesn't want to publish it? What if they're just gathering data because they're trying to manipulate and abuse someone and they don't even care if they ever publish this data? That's one thing. Two is, I question this because Facebook is not an institution. It's not an academic institution. And so unless it's working with an academic institution, I don't think so. Like Office of Human Research was clear. And there was another one. It was an FDA place. They were clear. It didn't look like it had oversight on either of those two things. They thought maybe the FDA might have some oversight, partially because it still could. It has to do with like biomedical research. I think it has to do potentially with HHS funding, like Human Health Services funding, that type of thing. But I'm still waiting to hear back from people. So I don't know. I don't really care if it cannot be published. I'm being abused. I'm not really seeing where people are very knowledgeable about this. I almost said intelligent, but it's not an intelligence thing, is it? Kind of emotional intelligence at some point, but it's not, because you're just ignorant. You're not knowing it. You're without knowledge. And that's not good. But I came across an article, and I am actually going to take this one and put it aside for myself, so I remember to try to put it in the description or something, or down below when I post this. But I always read off stuff, so you're free to just take your phone, and you can usually use the speak stuff right into the phone. How an IRB could have legitimately approved the Facebook experiment, and why that may be a good thing. Now, it may be a good thing, maybe because they're going to have more oversight. This was a June 29th, 2014 article. And, I cannot go over all this. But basically, in 2012, Facebook altered these algorithms. And they did it, I'm trying to see, it was like, just trying to look at it. Yeah, so they alter the algorithms they use to this is not verbatim what's said in there. Sorry, I altered it a bit, to determine which status updates appeared in the news feed of 689,003 randomly selected users, about one every 2,500 Facebook users. The results of the study, conducted by Adam Kramer of Facebook, Jamie Guillory, of the University of California, San Francisco, and Jeffrey Hancock of Cornell, were just published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Although some have defended the study, most have criticized it as unethical, primarily because the closest that these 689,003 users came to giving voluntary informed consent to participate was when they, and the rest of us, created a Facebook account and thereby agreed to Facebook data use policy. It's actually bolded and in red so that you can go take a peek at it if you want, or peeksy as I say, which in its current iteration warns users that Facebook, quote, may use the information we receive about you, ... That means there's a lot more in between there, for internal operations, including troubleshooting, data analysis, testing, research, and service improvement, end quote. That's not informed consent. What if you went into the hospital and you were not doing so well, and they were like, here's this gigantic book, and they put it on the end of your bed, and you're like, hey, that book's way down there on the end of my bed. Plus, I broke my leg, so it's kind of hard for me to move in the bed. Oh, don't worry about it. This book really isn't that important anyway. And you're like, well, why did you put it there? Because it's kind of not accessible. Anyway, then later on, you wake up and you notice that something's altered on your leg and it isn't quite what you wanted. And the doctor comes in and he says, how are you doing? And you say, not so good. My leg has kind of some pain in the upper thigh area. I can't see it because of this gigantic kind of covering you have over it. What is going on? And the doctor says, what do you mean what's going on? You know. And you say, no, I do not. I'm actually kind of tired. I'm out of it. And he points at the large red book at the base of your bed, which is still sitting there, but this time somehow it's open, as though you had read it. But you know you did not. And it's open right to this page that says that you consented to all these procedures that he did. You're not going to be happy, are you? We barely get informed consent as it is. I'm going to cite, just so that you know, I'm not just saying this. Weird-Yel Yankovic, right? Like a surgeon. Go take a look. Signing on the dotted line like a surgeon. Because his patients are going to be gone before he's live. Before he's done. Right? I could make it really funny. I think by playing a little bit of it is so funny. and the forceps, the retractor. Come on, you know the song. So, the thing is that this is really concerning. It's concerning. So here are the questions that are being asked, right? Because it says some of the discussion has reflected quite a bit of misunderstanding about the applicability of federal research regulations and IRB review to various kinds of actors, about when informed consent is and isn't required under those regulations, and about what the study itself entailed. In this post, after going over the details of the study, I explain more or less in order. This is a complex article, so I'm going to ask that people try to look at it by themselves. But these are the kinds of questions, more or less in order. How the federal regulations define human subjects research, why human subjects research conducted and funded solely by an entity like Facebook is not subject to the federal regulations, why, I'm going to call it HSR from now on, human subjects research. It's too exhausting for me. Why HSR conducted by academics at some institutions like Cornell and University of San Francisco may be subject to IRB review, which is Institutional Review Board, I think. It's a little redundant. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But IRB, even when that research is not federally funded, why involvement in the Facebook study by two academics nevertheless probably did not trigger Cornell's and University of San Francisco's requirements of IRB review. So even when involved with academics, it just didn't trigger a review. Why IRB had one reviewed the study. Sorry, that's in quotes. I think almost in quotes. Why an IRB might plausibly have approved the study with reduced, though not waived, informed consent requirements, and why we should think twice before holding academics to a higher standard than corporations. And that's the one I wanted to get to. Because if you've been listening to me before I came across this article, I've been mentioning how private corporate entities don't appear to be held to a standard. That's what I'm seeing. No one really knows. They don't know. Sad. Really, triste. Super triste. Because you know why? Like, they should know. They ought to know. I keep having to quote Alanis Morissette. The thing is that academic institutions often have abuse going on with their students, PhD students. Ask anyone who's a PhD student that worked in a university. The teachers just slough all the work off onto you. I had a number. You know the classes I was paying like over $1,000 a month for without books at OSU? The teachers, the majority of them were PhD students. They never did anything. I mean, they did stuff, but they weren't really teaching. They weren't available. Some of them were. One was. I found out that she was a PhD student that graduated, and I was like, you were a student? I thought she was like a teacher for over 10 years, at least 5. Anyway, I'm sorry to get sidetracked, but academia is not necessarily awesome either. But the thing is this is an unreal thing I can never do justice to. What they did was, this is weird. I almost just want to read it because I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong, but I might fall asleep. I hope I don't. Okay, the study. As the authors explain, because people's friends frequently produce much more content than one person can view, Facebook ordinarily filters newsfeed content, this is in quotes, quote, open quote, via a ranking algorithm that Facebook continually develops and tests in the interest of showing viewers the content they will find most relevant and engaging, close quote. In this study, the algorithm filtered content based on its emotional content. A post was identified as, quote, positive or, quote, negative if it used at least one word identified as positive or negative by software that was run automatically without researchers accessing users' text. That's, to me, that could be true. It probably is. If it's an algorithm, I don't know. Some critics of the experiment have characterized it as one in which the researchers intentionally tried to, quote, make users sad, to quote, to make them sad. With the benefit of hindsight, they claim that the study merely tested hindsight bias, merely tested the perfectly obvious proposition that reducing the amount of positive content in a user's feed would cause that user to use more negative words and fewer positive words themselves, and or to become less happy, in parentheses, more on the gap between those effects in a minute. This person's going to comment. I may not look at it, just so you know. But that's not what some prior studies would have predicted. Previous studies, both in the United States and in Germany, had found that the largely positive, often self-promotional content that Facebook tends to feature has made users feel bitter and resentful, a phenomenon that German researchers memorably call, quote, the self-promotion envy spiral, end quote. You gotta love those scientists from Germany for coming up with a really cool quote of words. Anyway, okay, sorry. And plus, I think they do make some good technology in Germany as a country, and so I think, I don't know. I have a doctor who has German ancestry, and my family doesn't have that. Sorry. Some of my family does. Actually, my daughter has some German ancestry. Just maybe, I don't even know.
I believe so.
Who cares? English for sure. Okay.
Definitely English.
Those studies would have predicted that reducing the positive content in a user's feed might actually make the users less sad. So that's what those studies would have shown. And it makes sense that Facebook would want to determine what will make users spend more time on its site rather than close that tab in disgust or despair, something I'm doing more often. Update as this person's wrapping it up. His rating, his rating's kind of confusing because he's got a lot of inside quotes and a lot of brackets. But at the same time as he's writing this article, Adam Kramer of Facebook is confirming on Facebook, as he states, of course, that they did indeed want to investigate the theory that seeing friends' positive content makes users sad. I know I want to do that. I want to see if I can make people sad all the time by giving them just a couple positive things that are kind of not really even the most positive. I've had people do this to me. They send me all their vacations, all their good stuff. That's not good for somebody who's stuck in bed. Maybe just try to talk to someone. Then you can talk about these things. Share some stuff that maybe makes the person feel included. I've done that on bicycle rides where I'm dangerously carrying a camera for you while I'm disabled and almost wrecked. Just use one that goes on your bike, or it's dangerous. It's dangerous, really is. But it worked. Nothing happened to me. I'm a careful driver most of the time, but I don't endorse phone use in bicycles. Someone got a kick out of it though. Anyway, in any case, in any case, the researchers conducted 2 experiments with a total of 4 groups of users, about 155,000 each. In the first experiment, Facebook reduced the positive content of news feeds. That's not even cool anyway, as far as I'm concerned. Each positive post had between a 10% and 90% chance of being omitted from their news feeds for that specific viewing. In the second experiment, Facebook reduced the negative content of news feeds in the same manner. I guess I'd rather have that happen. In both experiments, these treatment conditions were compared to control conditions in which a similar proportion of posts were randomly filtered out. That's a control group? Okay. I don't know. I thought nothing happened. Maybe it's just normal conditions. It's almost... That sounds weird to me, but maybe I'm reading it wrong. Okay. So without regard to emotional content, they just filtered out posts at random. I guess, yeah. I suppose that works. It's more of a control condition. Note that whatever negativity users were exposed to came from their own friends, not somehow from Facebook engineers. Well, I think some of that negativity came from Facebook engineers because they had their algorithm is being applied to it. So I don't know. Maybe he's being sarcastic. I don't know. In the first, presumably most objectionable experiment, he doesn't like it. He doesn't love it, does he? The
No.
researchers merely chose to filter out varying amounts, 10 to 90% of friends' positive content, thereby leaving a news feed more concentrated with posts in which a user's friend had written at least one negative word. This is a lot of writing. So the results, question mark? Whether they hypothesized these results in advance or not, the investigators found that for people who had positive content reduced in their newsfeed, a larger percentage of words in people's status updates were negative and a smaller percentage were positive. When negativity was reduced, the opposite pattern occurred. These results suggest that the emotions expressed by friends via online social networks influence our moods, constituting, to our knowledge, the first experimental evidence for massive scale emotional contagion via social networks. This could only be said by a bunch of people who are socially retarded robots. I am so sorry for using the word retarded, but it only belongs in this context. And I do not mean somebody who has or is born with. No, I've had many engaging conversations with people who claim that they, in fact, were given that label. You mean you don't know that people who have positive content reduced in their newsfeed, and they're going to have a larger percentage of words that were negative and a smaller amount of words that were positive? You don't know that when negativity is reduced, an opposite pattern occurs, but when you have positive comments reduced and so more negativity, that those people are going to walk away affected emotionally? Walk outside with regular people. Have you ever had a day? I'm using my friend's words. I had a day. Have you ever had a day where you went out into the world and people were being really negative? I have that all the time. I go home, man, I'm in, as my daughter calls it, a foul mood. It doesn't take much. I think I have a lot of patience, but it doesn't take much. So if somebody manipulates where you get the news from, I'm going to call that what it is science-wise. It's bullshit. Especially if they're studying you. And this guy goes on and on and on and on. There's some critiques. So even though this is statistically significant, the effect sizes are acknowledged by the authors quite small. They're saying here the largest effect size was a mere 200ths of a standard deviation. I don't want to get into statistics, I'll fall asleep. Plus, even with statistics saying whatever it might be saying here about effect size, I think Facebook has really caused a degradation of society, a degradation of communication, and overall an unhappiness and rejection among a lot of people. It's very toxic. The second, he's concluding, although the researchers conclude their experiments constitute evidence of social contagion, that's in quotes, that social contagion, that emotional states can be transferred to others, this overstates what they could possibly know from the study. I agree. They're making too many conclusions, maybe. They're overstating the significance of this word social contagion and emotional states that can be transferred to others. I'm not sure everyone. I know people who look at Facebook and they're like, yeah, I don't care. I mean it. They've never really looked at it. They don't get affected by it. If you show them something, they're like, I don't care. It says here, the fact that someone exposed to positive words very slightly increased the amount of positive words that she then used on Facebook posts does not necessarily mean that this change in her newsfeed content caused any change in her mood. I agree. I know I feel like shit because of Facebook, just because I feel like shit around Facebook. And I'm telling you, when I get away from it, it stops. And when I got away from their studies, I stopped feeling as much like shit. It's getting better every day. And the thing is about their studies, what I'm realizing is, and what I want to say, because I'm not going to go on to this. You can go. You are free to go to this. You've got enough information. the thing about it is that I think the reason that I didn't do as well as particularly on the second study where they wanted me to share data. They wanted me to double click on links, like right click on links, and then you would go and you would get that link and you'd share it with Facebook in the study. You had to share, I think 100 over the course of like, I don't know, 2 weeks. And then you had to share 100 over the course of like 24 hours or something insane like that. I don't remember what it was. And I think that I, on an unconscious level, or maybe even on a somewhat conscious level, but definitely subconscious or almost unconscious, I knew that I didn't want to share data with people that I felt were not good researchers. And I think I could feel Facebook because I've been on Facebook since its inception, since it started almost. It's really close. Like I got there, unfortunately, really close. And so I think I've been trained to react to negativity. This is sort of my guess. And so when Facebook came to me and was asking me to share this data, I did share a lot of it, but I didn't finish to the end of their study. And you know what? I was like, I don't want to share this link because this is a link to someone's data. Like, I'm not sure they want this. I'm not sure Facebook will be right about it. And I was getting very depressed too on both these things. Usually when you're getting money, like you see on the screen, you could see like every time I shared something, I'd get 25 cents. It's like a little lottery thing, like you're winning, right? They showed it. They haven't showed it moving up like a lottery thing. This is not an accident, Sarah. Do you think so? Did you see the way the money went up? 15 cents. It went up like a lottery machine.
Yeah.
That's done intentionally to make you feel like you're winning. But what was weird?
Made you feel bad.
Every time I felt bad. Now, in fairness, I hate casinos. They depress me. So, again, that's another variable. There's so many variables. So the thing is they go into a lot of talking about human subjects and why, this was not, why it got approval or why it was allowed to slip through the cracks. And I could talk about all that, but the real question is, why are we permitting human research without oversight? I don't accept anything. I don't need to have a big discussion about this. Human beings are involved. Facebook's researching without giving consent. This is easy. Facebook needs to get in trouble. Obviously, this IRB approval is bullshit. Obviously, they got around stuff to me. That's how I feel. So I almost don't care about the rest of it. Because it is a fact that I think in this case, it's just not right to allow someone to fall outside of research regulations. So if they want to study the public, they need to do so the way everyone else does. Otherwise, maybe I could start running research out of my house on human subjects. As long as I'm not part of the academia, right? I'll just start a corporation called Cheryl Corp. I don't really want to do that though. But that's not my point. I think we all can see there's a problem here. I mean, we all should be able to see every time we log into Facebook that there's a problem. I think what's particularly troubling to me about this particular study is it actually had academia involvement with the University of California at San Francisco and then also Cornell. But like I said, I'm not going to go through all this. I don't have time to go through all this. We've already reached 30 minutes, and I'm not going to. I will try to put a link, or we're close to 30 minutes probably.
Yeah.
I will try to put a link into the description so that you are free to read why it got around these things. But I will tell you that I found out that Facebook has an IRB. I forgot when that was put into place. Sarah, do you mind looking for me really fast? When Facebook, it's got a 5-person IRB. When I heard that.
When did Facebook?
Yeah, get this, it's like a 5-person, 5-employee IRB. That's not going to work. This is at least an article discussing it, and that's why I want people to look at it. I want them to read for themselves, and maybe I'm expecting too much. I think I read a lot. The reason I read it is because it's really, really boring. And it's more exciting to read while you're talking and then make some cracks or jokes or stuff about it. So I'm going to end it right there. And it looks like I'm going to end it on here. So next time, talk to you next time. And I don't know what it will be about at all. I've got no idea. I had something. Hold on, let me see if I can look. I had something just before I wrap up that I was going to talk about. This I just wanted to squeeze in just because I found it kind of unusual. I think the stuff that I was going to talk about, unfortunately, is on a recorded thing and not something I can tell you. So next time, see you next time in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you will think about whether or not it's appropriate for giant corporate entities to research human beings without oversight. I think we've had enough of that in our society with human beings being researched inappropriately. We need oversight always, and that oversight needs to be by somebody not involved in the institution. That is never a good thing. On that note, take care. Bye-bye.